Opposed, same. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1, petitions, communications and requests. This is the time of the meeting that a citizen may address the council on a matter not on the agenda. Except in case of emergency, the city council will not take any action at this meeting, but may ask city staff to research the matter or have the matter placed on the agenda for future meeting. Anyone have anything? Okay. Go to item 2, minutes, claims, reports and licenses. The following items have been deemed non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or a member of the audience wishes to have an item removed from this list, we consider it on its normal sequence on the agenda. I have A, minutes of October 3. B is resolution on payroll for period ending October 8 and paid on October 14. C is a resolution on bills, approve the fund list. D is recommend approval for issuance of beer and liquor licenses by the Iowa Department of Commerce for the following: new licenses, Wildcat Products LLC, Wildcat Distilling Co. 626 2nd Street, Class A native distilled spirits liquor license and Sunday service, and a Class C liquor license and Sunday service. And 2, amendment to Class C liquor license temporary additional outdoor service area to the Gridiron Sports Lounge at 1121 East 2nd Street for an event to be held Saturday, October 22nd. City.
To approve collectively.
I got the city manager reports and inspection.
Oh, I apologize.
And the police department report and the fire department report and the Hamilton County Solid Waste agenda packet. Now we're ready.
Still move to approve collectively.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. General agenda. It's cancelled anyway. Already got that little one. We have to do the resolution. Do you want me to- Public hearing on proposed plan specifications, proposed form of contract and estimate of costs. The construction of the Lincoln Drive reconstruction project has been cancelled. So I need a motion rejecting the bid received from the Lincoln Drive reconstruction project and rebid the project.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then we have a resolution providing for notice of hearing on proposed plan specifications, proposed form of contract, and estimate of costs for construction of the Lincoln Drive reconstruction project for November 21 at 6:05 p.m.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So this item is tied to the previous item in which you just rejected the bids that were received and authorized a rebidding process. So we're just requesting that we set a new public hearing for the rebid. We will be relooking at the bid process and reevaluating the plans and specs to see if there's anything we can do to adjust our plans and specs to make that project more enticing for contractors. So we're requesting that you set hearing for November 21st.
Motion. Second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Item B is the third reading of an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Webster City, Iowa, amending Chapter 10, Section 10-20 through 10-30 pertaining to building codes.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Before you is the third reading requesting the amendment and adoption of the building code ordinance. As stated in the last 2 readings, this would update the city's ordinance to the 2021 International Building Code and the 2020 National Electric Code. Staff's recommendation is to approve the third reading and adopt the ordinance.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We need a motion to pass. No, you don't.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item C is a motion to appoint the street supervisor as the representative and the city assistant city manager as the alternative representative to the Midas Transport Advisory Committee.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
D is a resolution providing for notice of hearing on proposed plan specifications, proposed form of contract and estimate of costs for the construction of Boone River Trail panel replacement project November 21st at 6:05 PM.
So this item has been before council before. We did receive a bid of 199,000, which was significantly higher than what we estimated this project to be. So we did contact the IEDA. They did permit for us to extend the amount of time to spend that $47,000 down. So we will be rebidding this project tomorrow with your approval, and we're requesting that you set the hearing for November 21st. New project completion date will be May 31st of 2023. So that will allow more contractors to bid on this project.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item E is a resolution designating the assistant city manager to be the authorized representative for the wastewater and drinking water treatment financial assistance program in the Iowa administered by the Iowa Finance Authority.
So this item before you is another item that we previously talked about related to the new wastewater treatment plant construction project. We have been working very hard to find alternative sources of funding to assist with helping with that cost. This particular grant has a maximum award of $500,000, so we are pursuing the maximum award. And this is administered through the Iowa Finance Authority. But in here, I do have a summary of the grants that I've been pursuing. The USDA Water and Waste Disposal Loan and Grant Program. We did submit the application for that. I did send an email to our representative to get a status update to see what kind of eligibility we have, and I've not heard from him. I have a more current update than from the memo for the state revolving loan fund. We are anticipated to be on the intended use plan in March of 2023. So our consulting engineers did get us in for that date. The water treatment financial assistance program, if you guys authorize today, then I'll be able to submit that grant application before the deadline of October 28th. We have had several conversations with FEMA regarding the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program. Unfortunately, this is not going to be a fruitful opportunity for us because we do have to go through a scoping process. If we don't go through that, then we are not allocated 10 out of 10 points as part of the evaluation criteria. And then because the state of Iowa does not have a mandatory requirement for the current building code, we automatically get issued 0 of 20 points. So out of 115 points, the maximum we would get is 85 or about 74% of the points. And that's assuming we would score at 100% on the rest of the criteria. And in addition to that, there is some substantial environmental and community engagement work that needs to happen before the end of November. And we just don't have resources to do that. So tonight, I'm just asking for council authorization to submit a grant requesting $500,000 towards that project.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Item F is a resolution authorising the mayor to sign and execute amendment number 17A with Snyder and Associates to provide additional professional services needed for Lincoln Drive and Fairmeadow Drive projects.
So this one is tied to both Lincoln Drive and Fairmeadow. Back in February of this year, you guys approved an amendment with Snyder and Associates to help with the design and construction administration needed for these projects. With Lincoln Drive, there was only a small amendment. We wanted to address some of the drainage issues on the east end of that street. So we requested that they tie that into the project scope. And then the one that's more substantially different would be Fairmeadow. We are requesting based on traffic patterns and the current age of the water main there. It's about 60 years plus. It's a 6-inch cast iron, so we wanted to tie that into the existing 12-inch water main on Des Moines just to improve the flow, fire suppression for that commercial area, and then increase the longevity of that main. Since we're going to be putting in a new road, it just makes more sense to tie it all together at this point. If we do that turning lane there, we would have to widen Fair Meadows, so that requires additional right-of-way work. There would be an additional scope tied to the traffic control, because it would be a little bit complicated when we're doing that. So there is additional monies tied to their work, and we're requesting authorization to approve. The total is about $141,950, and that would be covered with the road use and the lost funds.
Move to approve.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Item G is a resolution accepting and executing easement from the listed herein and in connection with the 2022 electrical underground conversion project.
So this one is just the last of the 31 easements that we've previously brought to you. We brought 30 to you, you approved them, and this is just the last one that was outstanding for the underground project.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item H is a resolution approving a contribution of $800 to the Webster City Chamber of Commerce for the Iowa Economic Development Authority Downtown Resource Center to perform a downtown assessment.
Yep, so the Chamber of Commerce is currently looking at ways to assist with improving the downtown. They've recently partnered with the Self-Supported Municipal Improvement District, also known as SMID, to conduct a downtown assessment, and have asked that the city be the third partner here with an $800 contribution. So what we would get is the Iowa Economic Development Authority Downtown Resource Center. They would come out, they'd do a walkthrough of our downtown, they'd evaluate it, they'd do some interviews. Some of them with our mayor would be involved, and then they would provide us with a report that we would be able to utilize for future improvements.
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item I, a resolution approving and authorising execution of a conditional electric infrastructure loan agreement by the and between the City of Webster City and Sparrow Properties LLC Automatic Machines, and also known as Parent Machining Companies.
This is a conditional loan with Sparrow Properties or Parent Machining Company. If you recall back in July, Dave Perrin addressed the council during public session, asking, expressing his interest to expand into a fourth facility in Webster City. The facility became vacant back in June, if I'm not mistaken, just behind, just across the street from his current facility off of James Street. That facility had seen and benefited from upgrades to the transformer and three-phase power that served that facility. And the company that used it under a conditional loan agreement at the time, fortunately filed for bankruptcy and closed up. And so there was the cost of the existing equipment and transformer that was remaining, that under the original agreement with the prior company was going to be removed. And Dave Perrin requested that the equipment remain in place as he was looking to relocate into that facility. The agreement specifies that provided that he stay in operation and business at that location for 5 years and continue to retain the employment numbers, especially in this current environment, that the remaining balance of about over $7,000 of equipment related to the transformer costs and installation will be forgiven by those.
Call for motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay. Other items, October 29th at 5:30 to 8 PM is residential trick or treating. October 31st from 3 till 6 PM is a downtown trick or treating. November 14th is a fall leaf pickup. And December 3rd is a Christmas in the city events. Doing all that part, then we'll go to have a work session now with the Wilson Borough Historic Park Commission.
May I have a recess for 15 minutes? The Wilson Borough Historic Commission is agendized for 6:30.
Okay.
So we may have.
Do you think everybody's here? It's coming?
Well,
Did
I
you wanna
haven't
wait?
heard from the three ladies yet.
They're not coming. Yeah.
They were all here.
So did you want to proceed now or do you want to wait? Yes, we,
You can proceed now. If we're moving.
Yeah. okay,
I think the three of us will speak. Will be good. Speak. Doug Bailey, Dean Bowden.
Okay.
And possibly we have two of the supervisors. One or both of them may want to speak to us. Okay. Good evening.
evening.
I appreciate the opportunity pursuant to my request 2 weeks ago to have this matter brought before the city council in reference to the affairs and the plans and the future of Wilson Borough Park. I think I want to speak to that a little bit, and I think the other member, Doug Bailey, and perhaps Dean Bowden is going to speak to what his vision is for this park. But before I begin, let me first of all do a little background for those new members of the council and maybe some of the older members, just to give a background check on how we got to where we are today on Wilson Borough Park. I'm one of 5 members of the Wilson Borough Park Historic Committee. Each of us have been appointed by you as a city council for the main purpose of giving advice, an advisory committee to the council on any and all affairs affecting Wilson Borough Park. I've been serving since 2015, and I believe in 2016, I was elected chairperson of this committee by the members of the committee themselves, and I continue to serve in that capacity up to the present time. Renovation of the park itself began in about 2016. The idea was to update the terrible condition that the assets of the park were facing, and to try to bring some restoration to the park itself, so it's a better image for the city and the park. Renovation began in 2016, and it really is continuing to this date, 6 years or more later. Those park assets that have been restored are the 2 cabins, the 2 pioneer cabins, the church, the Prairie Church, and the school, together with the park grounds have been extensively improved. What is remaining for restoration is the Hamilton County Courthouse and the depot. Those 2 items still remain to be worked on. Hamilton County supervisors, 2 of them are here tonight, but they have offered a gift of $180,000 towards the completion of the courthouse, which probably would be starting next year. That gift is made to the city without conditions. The depot plans have been stalled for the main part this past year anyway. They've been stalled because we're needing some guidance from the city council as to what we want this depot to be as a building in the park. Do we want it to be an actual building that is useful for historic purposes, or is it to be used as storage? And we've had a lot of work done by a subcommittee of ours that have been doing and meeting on the possibilities of how planning can best be accommodated for that depot. We've hired an architect who has done some work towards that end, but right now things have stalled and are just in a state of holding. The reason for that are a number of circumstances, one of which is the extensive amount of repair and mold removal we had to make last year from the basement. And unfortunately, a lot of the artifacts that have been donated by people over the years had to be destroyed. And that's a shame. I think it's also noteworthy in our background that how did we come up with the funds to do what we did? We've been very blessed, not only the cooperation of the city council, but in supporters of the community and those outside of the community have raised more than $660,000 of effort of monies towards this renovation project. We have paid up to date those expenses, and we have a balance, which I think you've seen in your packet, of a little over $67,000 in the park fund itself, which is used for purposes of expenditures that we're doing, ongoing expenditures of the park towards renovation. And we have an endowment fund that has approximately $43,000. So these assets that have been improved certainly weren't cheap to a large extent. I want to say that during the first 2 or 3 months of this year, there have been discussions with the Hamilton County Board of Supervisors and with John Hawkins, the mayor, being involved on behalf of the city as to how best we can, as two governments, can enhance the Wilson Brewer Park. I served as kind of an intermediary, along with Doug Bailey, in trying to get a statement of understanding as to where we are between the two governments. And we did come up with a statement of understanding under date of April 15th that I prepared for only two people, Rick Young and John Hawkins, for their review. And that purpose was to explore the options that were there before us and how best we can enhance the usage of Wilson Brewer Park. The intent of that document has to be understood. That was not a statement of how we're going to do it. It was a statement of where we were at that point in time. And it was done with a full knowledge and understanding that both the government here and the government in the county had to work together to kind of come up with a solution, if at all, on how best we can agree on this. So the statement of understanding was given on April 15th with the understanding that I had that both the county and the city would be fully aware of where we were at this point in time. But it was certainly going to be up to this council and to that supervisor board as to when the final document that is agreed upon. Now, in trying to enhance the procedure and moving it forward, I prepared two documents. Neither one of them were official documents of either myself or of my law partner, Zach Cheesy. It was done for the purpose of trying to capture the meaning of where we were, with the idea not that that's the document you sign, but it's a document to begin discussions with. That's where we are on the 20AD agreement, because I, nor can anyone on our committee, make any decision and say this is the way it should be. It's only a recommendation because that's what we're doing. We're advising the council. And our advice is that you should look at it, explore it, and discuss it. Stuff. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to swear, but I didn't get caught here. Better understand also, I want to give you a timeline, a table timeline of this whole to this year, where we've been. April 15th was the date after meetings with John and with Rick Young. We had come up with a statement of understanding that I put together in writing and gave to each of them. My understanding would be that each would have that to go back to their city council or to their board of supervisors or to the city manager with the understanding of this is kind of where we are. Where do we want to go from here? I proposed that 2080 agreement on May 10th and gave to both Rick and to John. On June 1st, I finally decided I should talk to the city manager. So I met with him, and to my surprise, he was not even aware of this agreement. Hadn't seen it. It was the first time. Took me back. And so I figured that we had to inform him a little bit more of where we were. So Dean Bowden and I took him to the park, and we met him at the park. We didn't take him. He met us at the park so we could better explain where what is in the progress, what we're trying to do here. And then we went back to Dean's home and discussed the details and was met with the fact, understandably, the fact that he is hired by this city to attempt to find ways of how the money is to be used and can are funds available for such a project as this. He made us fully aware of that, and we understand that's his job. No problem. So he was to prepare for us a statement of cost to try to allocate out of the cost for the parks, actually how much is really being spent now for Wilson Bullock Park. Those are the figures we were waiting for. Doug Bailey and I met with the city manager in August. And we still were told that the cost estimates had not been finalized. So I couldn't use anything for my regular meeting of my committee without knowing what we were talking about. In July, at the request of the city manager, I presented this issue, these statements to my full board of my committee, who were taken back because they were not involved in the discussions, but we got it publicly stated as to where we were. Cost of calculation was finally given to us, to me, on September 30th. And then I appeared here 2 weeks ago, just requesting this particular time. So I want to clarify a couple of things for the public and for the committees and the council as well. Hamilton County is gifting a sum of $180,000 to complete the renovation of the original Hamilton County Courthouse that's located on the park. And that's being donated without condition. Nothing the city is expected to do in order to get that gift. So we should begin looking towards completing that courthouse next year. Dean Bowden has offered a gift of $100 million and is intended to put in the endowment fund, not the building that's being talked about as a heritage center. Difference here. He wants to, he'll talk about it to confirm it, but it's not a condition, you know, that it goes to the building this building that we're talking about. It goes to the endowment. And the purpose of the endowment and the purpose of that gift was to be an incentive for other people to match that, to get a fund up to $2 million or more. Thereby, we were able to lessen the financial obligation of the city itself in their budgets. That's the purpose. It's supposed to be self-sustaining, and it will. Now, it's important for the county to donate land and to give us this option to buy the rest and to give us an easement so we can get in and out from Superior Street. It's important that this be operated under a board of trustees elected countywide to the Wilson Park Foundation for a term of 4 years each, and let that board become accountable and involved with the operation of the park, not the city. Let the foundation and its trustees be concerned about costs that have to be incurred for the operation of that park, not the city. Defer the management, the operation to a board of trustees for the purpose of overseeing it. And let them be accountable to their electorate on the operation of the park itself. Now, we have to, well, for the county to donate any land or to give us any option, we're going to have a board of trustees. We're going to have that by either a vote of the people of the city to do that, or if the council can do it that way. But you're going to have some legal advice on how best to set that up, because there's probably going to be questions and concerns, and for the council just to do it themselves, got to make certain that everybody understands what we're doing. So that's up to you folks, to how you want to do that. But if we don't have the board of trustees, then the county's not going to give the land. And Dean Bowden's not going to give $1 million to the endowment fund. So it's pretty important that we set it up properly to have the board of trustees operate the park. And then we have more incentive for donors to give to the park. Right now, look, we collected 600 and some $1,000, but we're about to the end of it. We're exhausted in trying to get more funds, because people now are asking, okay, they got it all fixed up now, how in the hell are we going to maintain it? Now, if the city is having a problem with their budget and can't donate money to at least basic maintenance, you think I'm going to be able to convince anybody to give any money to this? So to me, it seems like a no-brainer. And we've got to discuss in more detail the idea of an elected board of trustees to oversee the park. If that happens, then we've got $1 million that's going into the endowment fund, not to the building that everybody seems to be talking about. That building, if it ever becomes a reality, is meant to be a heritage cultural center for the county. That's why the county is interested. So we've broadened the scope of not just the city of Webster City, but the residents, the people of the county, with the idea that it enhances our history of the county, including the city, which brings us all better together as a people of the county, rather than the counties over here and the cities over here looking at each other. It's meant to bring us together. Now, it's important for the vision of this park, or to have a vision. I think you're elected for the vision. I think the city manager has been appointed for purposes of pushing a pencil and seeing exactly what it can be done. And that's his job. Your job, in my opinion, I voted for you for the purpose of giving leadership and vision to the city. And that vision includes this park. Now, we can do a few things. We're at a crossroads, as I see it. We can go ahead and finish the renovation of the courthouse. We've got $180,000 to start with. And we can finish the work of the depot. Then our committee just stops, said, okay, we did what we were supposed to do. We renovated the buildings. Now it's renovated and the city now maintains it. We find a way to maintain it. What we don't have then is ingress and egress into the park from Superior Street. We don't have the right to the property, which could be sold at a hell of a lot more money than donating it to us. And we wouldn't have the option to buy the building on which the state of Iowa now leases from the county. I think this park is underrated. We look at it, tend to look at it as some old park with a bunch of crap on it. And nobody goes there. And it's more of an obligation to the city council than it is a vision, than it is an asset. I think that's wrong. This has potential, great potential, to be a destination park if we only set our minds to it. It'll be utilized by residents of the whole county and not just the city, and it will be open to many people. People that come through here will want to see what that is, what that park consists of. But it's important that we look ahead, not that we're going to have a building or we're going to exercise an option to buy at this point in time, but look forward to saying, okay, let's set up a board of trustees. Let's get the land, let's get the endowment fund, and let's go from there. We don't have to build that building this year, next year, or the following year, but we have the land. with the idea that we at least have a potential to put something up there in the future. Okay. That's all I want to really say at this point in time, but, you know, I'm sold on this. And I want to make sure that you're fully informed and paid discussion. I understand the problems with the money. And I see Daniel's figures. And, you know, in all due respect, the maintenance of the park for the last few years averages about 3,000 or a little more. He's concerned about the fact that's going to raise to 5,000. Well, that's peanuts compared to what this park's worth. You have to find a way. It's not easy, but I think you're elected to find a way to make it work. Thanks.
Yeah, I got a question, couple questions. For you guys, like, I agree with a lot of your sentiments about the park and, you know, and in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen a lot of beautification, the walking path, renovations of the buildings, and that's greatly appreciated. And that was kind of our vision. I think, you know, you kind of gave your advisory board kind of the mission to like renovate this park. We're behind it. We want to see it happen. And a lot of it's done, and the cabins too, but I forgot to mention those. The question I have though tonight is like, can we even technically have this work session? I feel we're having a work session with a board with 2 of 5 members and no quorum. And
But we're not meeting as a committee tonight.
that's fine, but let me ask you this then. So the information you shared with me, some of it is new. I was under the impression that yes, that it was more towards a building, you know, not necessarily endowment. Does the advisory board know that as well? The Wilson Brewer advisory.
Well, they will tomorrow if they don't know before.
So here's my problem. You're coming to the council as an acting chairperson of a board, presenting a recommendation that your board has not voted for.
Yeah, they voted on it.
To relay the information you're coming with me today.
Yeah, they voted on it in July.
So they are aware of it.
4-1, your wife said it.
I'm saying like, what the information you're telling me today is different than I thought a week ago, you know, so
Well, who told you a week ago what it was?
no one, okay, I guess I'm getting information from the city manager saying one thing, and then we're getting relayed that there's no strings attached to some stuff. There's, you know, some numbers that our city manager is giving us or in the hundreds of thousands of budgetary numbers for the Parks and Rec. I'm really concerned on that. I'm just curious if what you're coming today presenting to us has been passed by your advisory board, because I feel that some of them haven't been included in some of these discussions and they feel a little bit alien. And
I can't help that. But we did vote on it. And I fully made everyone aware that's on our committee to be here tonight to have their input. I can't make them come.
but again, I just want to pose that question, like, should we be having a work session with a partial board? And again, I know it's not technical or technical meeting to call roll, but I just feel a little uncomfortable with calling it a work session with a advisory commission, only having 2 members. I'm okay proceeding if the rest of the council is, but I'm just.
Well, it's in your court. You have a vote.
Right.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say, I think the rest of the board, your board has reached out to some of us and they don't feel included or like this is something that they're for, so it's concerning to me.
Well, let me answer that. It's nice, we haven't had meetings recently because of this lack of what we're doing here. You know, things have been stalled since April. But we had a vote on this and we presented the whole matter in July at our board meeting. The vote was 4-1 to approve. They were looking at the understatement of understanding. They were looking at the 2080 agreement, which was just a proposal. Now, I can't help it how others feel. The problem probably to some extent is this. When this got started, the intent was just deal with as few amount of people as possible before we get to a point where we have an understanding. So everything, that's why it was limited basically to John Hawkins, and to Rick Young. I was involved, and at times Doug Bailey was involved. Those discussions were held to try to come up with a statement of understanding. Okay, now, it wasn't told to our committee because my request of me was not to do it, not to dispose it. I assumed that the city manager would have been going about it, but he didn't. I don't look for fault. I'm just saying that's a fact. Now, from this point on, I mean, it's your vote. You're the one that has been elected or appointed to have some vision of where we're going, and we have to work through it. Number one, are you for it? Number two, let's find a way to work through it. That's all I'm requesting. It takes time, and the devil's always in the details. We have to work together with the board of supervisors to try to bring this to a conclusion.
The only thing I was wondering is whether the board was presented. I mean, you presented very well tonight, and I just don't know if that was, is that?
Well, let me tell you.
What was presented to the board.
Let me tell you. I gave an email and I gave a full description of what we were doing tonight. I can't bring these people to the meeting.
When did you give that?
Yeah.
I gave it Thursday or Friday.
Oh, but you had come to council 2 weeks ago and asked for this meeting.
Yes.
Without consulting them. right?
Well, without a meeting, we didn't have any, I didn't talk to them about that. No, I just said that I wanted to come to say we need to move it off of dead center and have these discussions. That's where I am.
I just wonder if we should wait, if you should present your board visit meeting tomorrow.
We meet tomorrow.
If you should present it just as you did tonight to them. And that way they can then give their recommendation what to do.
Well, whether they recommend.
Which I know you've already said they did once, but for some reason they seem to be, I don't know, they seem to be a little bit lost with it because.
Well, I haven't heard this. I
Some
haven't
comments
heard
from that, from three of the other meetings we got today.
What's that?
We had an email today from some of the members that they weren't exactly sure what's going on. So it just seems to be premature to come to us because, you know, we got beat up pretty bad here a few years ago because we decided to do something without waiting for the other boards to get their say so and everything else. And or going past any of the boards, we bypassed everybody. And when we were given a good spanking for it. So and we agreed with it. So we're reluctant to do that again. But you know, I have no problem with the concept, as you know.
I know.
And I think it's a great idea, and but we still, like you say, it's in the detail.
Well, we do have a meeting tomorrow.
And, you know, and probably one of the main reasons that I believe we weren't being out in the open with this earlier was that our main donor didn't really want all this out here. So, you know, it's unfortunately Ben didn't. You know, and here we are where we shouldn't have been in the first place, I guess.
Well,
Have you gone to the Parks and Rec board yet?
yeah,
And they've voted.
they didn't vote. They didn't vote. They just preferred to vote.
Yeah, I mean, I'll relay, John's statements, I mean, we made a commitment 5 or 6 years ago, well, around the time we appointed you to the board, to renovate this park and make it more of a destination, and the caboose came in and the walkway and then the renovated cabins, it's awesome, and the cleanup and the depot, been amazing. But again, I feel like there's some diplomacy lost in this with some possible board members that might feel alienated in this process. And I feel it probably would be best for you and your board to kind of gather together again tomorrow, make sure everyone's on the same page, vote on a recommendation to bring to us, so we know
That's fine.
Yeah, and because again, we want the conversation. We want this conversation and we definitely need to know what's going on with the park, what, you know, possible donors are out there, what possible arrangements with the county are out there. We need to know this stuff, but just again, we've got some information today that kind of makes us feel that the board isn't necessarily unified at this point. So I would probably recommend taking that opportunity tomorrow's meeting to get everyone on the same page and come with a
Well, I'll find out tomorrow who it was, because nobody's contacted me. As chairman of the committee, which I would think of courtesy would at least be with me. But I'll find out tomorrow, we'll have another vote. But however they vote, if they vote favorably or unfavorably, it's still in your point.
well, like Mayor Hawkins said, I would relay just what you relayed tonight. Again, I learned some tonight about what's going on, you know, with possible endowments and monies and possible ideas. So I would relay that same information, relay information the city manager has given you to them, you know, about, you know, our budget situation, what we can afford to our Parks and Rec dollars. If that doesn't even come into play, like I was under the impression that probably would come into play. If there's an endowment to support that, please relay that as well, because that's all good to know.
Anything else?
Anyone else want to? Go on there. Dean? Come on up, Dean.
Your Honor, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Dean Bowden. I moved to this town 46 years ago with a vision. A vision to start a processing plant to process ham and bacon. We didn't have any money, but we had 15 years of experience, myself and another with another company. We thought Webster City was a good location because there wasn't anything of this nature in this area, but there were packing plants and there were hogs. We had supply. We had good roads to take our product away. We now have 150 to 175 people, depending on how many we can hire from day to day, which is a problem. We ship to California, Texas. We export, and we do a lot of different things. It takes a lot of work, to put a company together. You have to have cooperation between a lot of people. We formed a partnership. We thought partnership would work the best. There were three of us. One was in production, one was in HR, I guess is what everybody calls it now. And the other one was in maintenance and taking care of the property. It worked well. We didn't fight with each other. And things worked well, and it's been a very successful company, and I hope it's been an asset to Webster City, Iowa. We give a lot of money away at our company to charity. I'm 84 years old. I made a decision in my life, if I have any money at the end of my life, I'm gonna give it all away before I die. Because I don't trust attorneys. Nothing against you two guys, you're nice guys. I don't trust the government. And I don't trust people who say they can do something with your money better than you can. So my wife and I have poured a lot of money into this town over the last 5 years. I can think of 4 different buildings that I have put anywhere between $100,000 to $300,000 into. We do it without a lot of fanfare. We're not looking, we don't have I'm not like Groves. I wasn't born and raised in this area. Everybody knows Groves' name. Because he was born in one of those cabins, I think. But anyhow, we don't have a marker in the cemetery. I'm not looking for my name on a building, but when I was asked to put together a vision of an area down there where we're talking about is a 1 acre parcel, which is worth a lot of money to somebody, probably someday. And with that other building there, I told Gary we need to get a agreement with the county to see if we can have first right of refusal on that building. Because my vision is maybe someday that building could be a museum. It's a beautiful building. I think you have to agree with the advent of the new clinic down there. That side of town from the highway all the way to City Hall looks very, very nice. Very nice. The other side of the street's not quite as good yet, but it'll come. You have had a growth in this town in the last 2 years that I think is quite phenomenal. I don't know who's all responsible for it. But people like Quick Trek, Carl Chevrolet, and Nielsen John Deere, who owns 9 John Deere dealerships, are not dummies to come to this town. There's a reason they came here. You know that between Dubuque, Iowa, and Sioux City, Iowa, Quick Trip in Webster City has the closest bathroom you can access on 300 miles of highway. Now, Quick Trip tells me that they have 1,000 customers a day. Would you believe that? I believe it. Every time I go in, there's 4 cashiers. It's like going to a Trader Joe's in Phoenix, Arizona. They always got cashiers that are busy. It's a great asset. Carl Chevrolet didn't come here because they're stupid. He came here because it sits on a great highway. It's in the middle of the state. There's a lot of money in this area because this county, by the way, this county provides more than the ag part of this county, supplies more than half of the tax money in this county. I happen to be a farmer as well as the owner of a packing plant. I pay county taxes, I pay city taxes, I pay other taxes. And by reason of the county, the park to me, I'm regressing a little bit here, but the park to me has limitations to be very exciting. It has 6 buildings on it, and I'll give you some numbers. There's 6 buildings on that park. You know how many square feet are in those 6 buildings? What do you think? Come, all of them put together, how many square feet? I'll tell you. 8,500 square feet. Do you know the depot is 180 feet long and 12 foot wide? It's not really designed for much other than putting passengers onto the train and taking the baggage off and storing it until they come to pick it up. That was 100 years ago. Do you know that caboose that came to town? Who do you think paid for that? Anybody here? 6 people in this town paid for that caboose. 3 of them are sitting in this room. Because we felt 3 years ago, the way things were going with COVID and everything, that we needed a little spark to get excited about doing something with the park. So 6 of us got together and we spent $40,000 on a caboose. Well, we haven't done any more with it because we don't have the funds, quite frankly. COVID screwed us up in a lot of ways. One of them was everybody went defensive, and now everybody's defensive because of inflation. So the money for the park is not just flowing in faster than we can count. Now, we haven't had any major fund drives. We can do that, but the big money, take care of that park and anything future will come from 5% of the people. That's about how that works. Enough money to get to $1 million, $2 million, whatever it takes. So we're gonna have to do a lot of work as a committee, as a group, to even finish the 6 buildings, let alone do something else. Because it's gonna take $1.5 million plus to finish the rest of those buildings. And then you still have 6 buildings that are closed. Now, that park has some deficiencies in my estimation, has had. The city inherited, and what was the year they signed that they take care of everything? 1934 or something like that. It has no parking. Old people aren't gonna walk 3 blocks to get down to the park to go around the park. It has no parking, it has no shelter, it has no bathrooms, and it's never open. Now, that's not a very good scenario for the city to be proud of. This other vision that I have with the county, and God bless them for being as generous as they're being, would give us 75 parking places. There's now 10 down there. 3 are handicapped, and I think 8 regular. It would give us up to 75 parking places, about 40 during the week and about 75 on the weekends, because part of the other building has parking. It would give us, and my idea was, I want to build a barn down there. Carolyn Miller used to tell me thank God for Carolyn Miller. It's a wonder that park even exists, because she spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on her own keeping the church going. And that's what everybody knows the park for, is because of the church. So thank you to Carolyn Miller for that. But she was always on my case that she thought that we needed to build something down there, because when they had a wedding, they had to pull a camper in there with a kaibo off the side, so the wedding party could get dressed in the camper. Well, that was real nice, but she managed to pull it off as many as 8 or 10 times one summer. She had 8 or 10 weddings. Her venue is a small venue. It can handle 75 to 80 people comfortably. It's not going to cost a wedding couple very much money to get married, but they can have a nice small wedding down there, and they don't have to go to Briggswood and pay $5,000 to rent an area for 200 people. There's $10,000, which works for a lot of people. But that building that I proposed down there would have room in it for people to dress on. It would be a good room for people to dress, and the bride and the groom, they could get themselves prepared and walk over to the church. That would be good. Also, in the event we ever find enough money and put it together to have a manager or curator, if you will, which is a common name for that. You all know what a docent is? DOCENT? You know what that is? Any of you?
I do.
What is it, Jane?
Docent is an educated volunteer who
Is trained.
is trained.
It'd be like Bob Oliver going somewhere and giving a tour of products.
Yeah.
That's called a docent. They are volunteers. You can have all the volunteers in the world, but if you don't have a manager, you haven't got anything. And basically, that's what's happened to this park over the years. We had few volunteers, but it was too big of a job for those few volunteers because there wasn't any money involved in the park. And so but you got to have a docent group. There's always ladies and men who that retire, that like to be volunteers and show things off. You could have that, and you could have a meeting room down there for them in this. They're not going to be a wedding on Monday through Friday, so you could have a meeting room there, another meeting room. And in that barn, I would make that barn 80 foot wide by 140 feet long. You know how many square feet that is? 14,000. 60% more than what you got down there now. In the center, I would have an opening 32 foot wide, 140 foot long, not committed to anything. If it started to rain and you had 400 people at a concert out in the middle of the park, where do you think those 400 people could go? I believe they'd head for that center of that building, wouldn't they? So it would serve a lot of purposes. On either side of the building, the barn, it's a 1900 model barn. I would have 7 rooms on either side. Each room would be 20 by 25. Approximately 500 square foot. They would face the center aisle. They would have walls between them, expandable walls, blah, 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 whatever. They would have HVAC systems in them that you could cut each room off whenever you wanted. It'd be like building a motel or a hotel. You wouldn't have to run all the HVAC at the same time and have a big bill. If you want to run if you want to run air conditioning in 2 rooms, because you only needed that in the type of room that it was, you run it in 2 rooms. This HVAC split, these splits, they call them splits. You should know all about that, Logan. They're very effective, very efficient, and everybody's going for them. We put them in a Jane Young house. It's a great situation. So I would have 14 rooms. I would give 1 to Carolyn Miller for the church. I would have the other room in the corner of the first, as it looks out up to the park. I would have the manager and restrooms. People could drive right up to that manager's office, ask him about the park, ask him where they can go in town, ask them if there's other things in town like the library, the Jane Young House, the new building, the lift building we're talking about. We got some great things in this town for people to do. So that's where I would put the manager or the curator or whatever. And then in the back room, I would have another situation. I think that we need someone in this town. In fact, I know someone came to us and said, I'd like to work on the artifacts of the cabins that are stored in the trailer for the last 3 years. Gary said, well, that'd be great if you'd like to work on them, clean them up, get them ready to put back in the cabins. But we don't have a place to do something like that. Well, he said I could do it in the cabins. No, Gary said, that wouldn't work. We couldn't have sawdust and glue and, in the cabins. And then John Hawkins mentions all the time we need storage. So anyhow, in one room in the corner in the back, I wouldn't do the storage. That's another story, John. In that room in the back, I would have saws and drills and polishing, what do you call them, sanders, for people in this town who are retired and have their own little woodworking shop. I'll bet I could get a lot of guys down there volunteering in the middle of winter at 10 o'clock in the morning just to get the hell out of the house. In fact, I've talked to a couple of carpenters already, and they said, you count on me. I'll be down there working when I retire. So that's some of the things you could do. That would leave 11 rooms in that building. And I would offer, you know how many towns are in this county? 9. Webster City and 8 small towns. Webster City is 7,200 people. And the rest of the 8 towns in this county are 5,000 people. There's also 3,000 people that live in the country out of the 15,000 in the county. Webster City is half the county. Webster City is losing population. We need some growth. We really do. When I moved here, there were 8,700 people. Now there's 7,200. I don't like that. There's some great things going on here, and I think we deserve better. And I think we can have better if we work together on this thing. I would offer each of the towns in the county one of those rooms. If they would like to present their town and show their town off and bring antiques and artifacts and things, because all these little towns have their own story. Every little town in this county has its own story. Stanhope, Williams, Jewell, they all do. But they're small towns. Now, some of them may not choose to do that. If they don't choose to do it, fine. Offer it to people in this town like Legacy Learning Center. I talked to Mo Siemens and her group the other night on board meeting. They'd love to have one of those rooms for Legacy Learning Center. You all know what Legacy Learning Center is. Now they're renting space out at the convention center, and that's expensive. They would love to have a place down there for that type of thing. There's a lot of things you could do in those rooms, and people, I think, would fill them in and make it a place where people want to go down there. Going back to people coming into town, I noticed in the paper by the way, Zane, thanks for some of the nice stuff that you've been putting in the paper. I really appreciate the stories that different or different people have done for you, because I think your paper has really sparked up here in the last 3 months since you took over. I enjoy reading it now. I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Oh, the RV place. 21 stalls to fix your RV. Now, you know, how many people here have an RV? Well, when you take your RV in to get it fixed and you came 50 miles and they say it's going to take 3 hours, you say, oh, I don't think, what do I do? 3 hours? You can do it. Can't you do it any quicker than that? No, it's going to be 3 hours. Well, why don't the RV place just give them a list of places in town that they maybe like to visit? Maybe they'd like to go to the library. Maybe they'd like to go to the Lift building. Maybe they'd like to go to the Jane Young house. There's history in this town. This is all about history, folks. Now, I know young people aren't interested in history. They're not interested in history, but my generation, I'm 84 years old. My generation is still interested. My children, I'm trying to get interested. They're 50 years old. Their children are not as interested, but we're working on them. And I think we need to preserve our history, quite frankly. And we're better than out here. Getting back to the fact that all of these different buildings down there are site specific, the log cabin, there might be one person that would only want to see the cabins. Maybe one person only wants to go to the country church. Maybe one person only wants to go see the country school. Maybe one person is a railroad guy and he wants to go look at the railroad deal and go through the caboose. Every kid will go through the caboose at least once, especially if you put a water fountain in it. So I think that would work well, but there's no agriculture related to that park. So my idea would be that before 1950, agriculture was completely different than it is now. Tractors didn't have rubber tires. They had steel wheels. They were small. I know, I was born in 1938. I was driving a tractor when I was 6 years old that had steel wheels on it and a steering wheel like this that you went like that, and I couldn't start it. I couldn't stop it. My dad had to start it. Now these kids that are 6 years old get in these tractors and they have to show their dad how to drive them because of the technology. And so there are small implements out there. I have personally a couple of things I would put in there in the area. I have a Conestoga wagon that's quite old. It's in very good shape. I have a road grader made by the Adams Company out of Indianapolis, Indiana. Anybody here know where the Adams Ranch was? In Oldbold, Iowa? Adams Ranch was a 12 to 15,000 acre ranch bought many years ago in the 40s by a company in Indianapolis who made road graders that were pulled by horses. And they bought 12,000 acres in Oldbold, Iowa and farmed with over 100 mules until after the war. But I have a road grader made in 1895 by that company. I would gladly give that as something down there. But how many of you have a road grader made in 1895 pulled by horses? Well, I happen to have, just because I went to a sale one day and bought one. So that's my vision for down there. I think what we need to do is figure out a way. And I know it looks like maybe there were some meetings held, but that was because it could only be let out certain ways. I was privy to it because they were looking for some guy with the big ideas. And not that I have big ideas, but I'm a dreamer, I'm a visionary. And I'm trying to give $1 million away, but I'm having trouble. Now, you all know what an endowment is, do you not?
Yes.
Endowment is something you take the principal remains intact and the earnings of it can be spent for anything into perpetuity. That $1 million will go on forever and ever. Now it's going down right now, believe me, it's going down. And my check is good. So that's my dream of that area down there. And I think it'd bring the county and the city more closely together. And I think that's good. Now, I went up to Clarion 2 weeks ago and they have a beautiful, how many of you people have been to Clarion Museum? Are you kidding me? There is a museum up there. And I swear to God, you could spend 4 hours in there and not see everything. There is stuff from Webster City in the Clarion Museum. But they never were open. I don't know why. Now they're starting to open up during the summer. They were never open. It's like down here. If you're not open, you're not gonna get anybody to go look. You're not gonna call somebody up. So I don't want to take a lot more of your time, but if you have a question, I'll answer it because I take all my signals from Zach Cheesy, so I'll be able to answer it. Come on, give me some questions. There's a lot on internet, I noticed a little bit. No, I'm not gonna give $1 million to the sewer project. That wouldn't be any fun.
We don't want to stand in your way. I think our concern is we want our advisory boards to act in harmony with us.
You want what?
Our advisory boards to be all on the same page and act in harmony with us. And we were just made aware there might not be some harmony going on within one of our advisory boards. We'd prefer to have a unified recommendation come to us, or the entire board come to us and give a recommendation. We share your vision.
Well, part of the
And-
problem, I think, with the advisory board was participation. There, some people were not coming to meetings. That was part of it, but that's not all of it. But I am not involved in that part of the advisory board. I have no skin in the game in any of these boards. I used to sit in that chair right down there at the end, but that was 30 years ago. Back then, that park was, we didn't ever hear much about the park. But obviously it was going under way back then, maybe, because there was some bad communication between the park commission and the council and blah, 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 blah. And that's a long story that some of you probably know more about it than I do. But I was on council for 4 years, so I know just how you feel sitting there. But I don't think we can look at the nickel dime things or what it might cost. I think we can work out something on costs. And the whole idea, my whole idea was to relieve the city of any costs. Wouldn't that be great if we could get the general public to put a $3 million endowment together and have $150,000 a year coming in? So if any of you got any extra cash laying around, why, don't be afraid to call.
I think that's what our big concern is as well.
You what?
I think that's another main concern of ours is the endowment on a good market year will bring in $50,000.
Oh, an endowment what?
We'll bring in $50,000
Yeah,
in a year. But then in the budget to have the curator come in, it's $85,000.
you have what?
The curator would cost $85,000.
Well, that's rumor. You'll have 100 applications for that job for 9 months. You don't have to inflate those type of numbers to try and beat something into the ground.
Those were the numbers we were given.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
We've done some research on our own too.
Okay. I guess it's just, where is the money gonna come up from? Because we have your 1 million, but you're suspecting that another million's gonna come up.
Well,
Are we
it
going to
could,
get that?
it might, yeah, it
But
might,
that still is a
it
question.
could. We
Yeah.
were hoping that it might, and it would spur some activity. And a lot of people don't getting money out of people is not easy.
No, it's not.
I've tried it a lot of times, and it's tough, believe me.
I think that's our concern.
Well, sure, it's your concern, but you gotta have some vision. Because
I'm not saying that this isn't a great idea. I'm just saying, where's the money gonna come from? The remainder of it.
well, you had a budget up until 2012 of $50,000 dedicated to the park. That was cut in 2012 to $20,000. That wasn't a very smart move on the part of the city. Now, I understand none of you were involved in that. That was another city manager, blah, blah, blah. He pulled 30,000 and took it off to one of his favorite projects. So we sat on $20,000. Nothing was ever done to bring that money back into play. There was not enough concern on anybody's part. They just thought, let everything go to hell and let the next council do it. Well, that's what happened. So here we are. That's what people like myself and Gary Groves. We're not gonna be around very long, so we want to get this thing going, because we're old. But we think there's something here that could be good for this city. And really make this city stand. This city deserves more than a bunch of old buildings on its main entrance into town, never open and deteriorating because of a few dollars. Now, we got some nice kids parks around. We should be good there for the next 20 years. Because we spent a lot of money on children's playgrounds and so on and so forth.
My question is, I guess for everybody is I'm still confused about what the goal was, what you're asking us tonight. I feel that the two presentations were sort of contradictory in that you're asking for a trustees board and you're talking about a building. And so I guess I'm confused at like, what was the goal? What was the goal
We're
tonight?
not expecting the city to build a building.
No,
We know
I
they're not
understand
gonna do that because they're not, I mean, they're not even taking care of what they got based on the thing, on what they signed up for 45, 65 years ago.
my question is, what was your hopes for the end of this meeting? Where would you have ideally see this conversation have gone?
What are our hopes?
Yeah, for this meeting
this
today.
meeting.
Well, I guess we'd like to not be beaten down quite so fast about an idea that we think has a lot of feasibility. And to me, I don't know about the rest of the guys, but to me, it's very timely, given we have all this new building going on south of town. There's a 1% tax, I believe, attached to those people on everything they sell. And I think the city gets some of that, maybe. Anybody know about that?
Yeah, so you're asking for an advisory, or sorry, a trustee committee, correct? To move forward for the county to donate the land and a trustee board is what the request is.
Thank you. Appreciate.
I get what you're asking.
It's not contradictory at all. You just on another topic is all we're doing.
Okay, and that's why I'm asking for the clarification.
That's it. Well, my presentation was to the point of saying, look, you gotta take action from this point on. You have to look at this and see if you can work out an agreement with the county. And you're not gonna get there if you don't discuss it and not be informed of what we're doing. All right? And a meeting with a meeting tomorrow, we'll be on the advisory committee. They'll have an opinion and I have an opinion. Nobody, Logan, necessarily have the same advice. Right? So they all have an opinion. I was hoping tonight, everyone invited, they would come, they would share their opinions right from here. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about it. We'll do a resolution as you requested, and we'll see where the vote is. But even if we vote it down, that committee, they're just advisory. Okay, they're not necessarily controlling your vote.
Correct. Yeah, I understand that. We value our advisory boards and we respect their opinion. Of course, if I gotta, pull rank on occasion, we go against. A good example of that is a hotel motel board. Sometimes we adjust the numbers they advise every now and then to us.
I understand.
And we respect your opinion. Again, just an email we all received today. We want to make sure the entire board is being heard. And the entire board is being informed at the same level, or probably before we are, before any information is shared from the board. And so that's why I think it'd just be more timely to just, you meet with them, your board gets on the same page, makes a recommendation to us. We then take that information, internalize it and make our call.
We'll have it back on the agenda.
Yeah, in 2 weeks if you want. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Well, I presume we'll take action tomorrow and you'll have the results of it by the end of the week. As to what our advice would be.
Yeah, if you
Take
could,
it from there.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are more than welcome to draft us up a memo or something too, or give it to Daniel.
Yeah.
We don't mean to delay anything. Again, we just want to make sure
And I'm
everything's
not-
on.
not
everyone's the
saying-
same.
Everybody's informed.
Yeah.
I think that's where we
And
want to
timely
be.
informed.
That's right. We want to be informed of where we are, what we're doing. And I think we have an opportunity here from the supervisors. And I think Rick wants to talk. If you don't mind, I'll just defer to him and let him say what he wants to do. If you have any other questions, I'll be around.
I appreciate
Or you
it.
can call me.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yes, Carolyn.
Could I just say something? brief?
Come to
I forgot.
Carolyn.
No,
Carolyn,
this man needs to go.
Carolyn,
He knows. He
you-
knows.
Did you want to let Carolyn go first? Carolyn, come down to the podium.
I'll just be brief, Mr. Young. You're more important than I am. No, it's not.
City Manager Daniel, John, Mayor John, Carol, City Council members, City Attorney, Mr. Cheesy. I'm here, I'm not a speaker, but I love that park down there. And it's went year after year now. How many years? We had 2 years of the COVID. We're struggling to get back. I'm struggling to get people in to see the programs. I'm having weddings. What did I do this year? 4 programs, 3 weddings. The mayor sees my work, what I'm doing. I send him my schedule, along with the city or the Webster City Wilson Brewer Park Committee. They know what I'm doing. I love this park. I'm down there every morning. I have my coffee down there. Call me crazy, call me silly. Haven't you got something else to do? I'm retired. I enjoy it. Years ago, briefly, years ago, I don't know where Dean went. Oh, there you go. Sorry, I didn't see you sit down. I thought he was sitting over there. Dean sat in Matt McKinney's chair. And it was in the early 1990s, and Dean was on the city council. I come here with my knees knocking, scared to death, had to come and stand up here and ask you to take that Mulberry Center Church and place it at Wilson Brewer Park. Do you know how hard that is for a country girl to stand up here? None of the council said anything, not a soul. Seemed to be a glassy eye deal. And all of a sudden Dean said, he didn't stand up or anything, he just said, you know, I think we got a place for that down there. And that would kind of complete things. Don't you, rest of you think that? Something to that effect. You probably forgot all about it, but it was a big deal to me. Early 1990s, when he was on the council, you have to look on your records about it. He helped get Mulberry Center Church down there. Okay, another thing. It takes you a long time to act. And we get older. And what is fixed up down there? Gary has done something with the log cabins. It's just wonderful. Didn't I stand up at the Sampson Room at Fuller Hall and you were on the council, Matt was, there's new ones. Oh, John was on that when you was in the Sampson Room, and I said, those log cabins are in dire shape. There again, my knees was knocking. Guess what? Wheels begin to turn. Gary entered the picture. And we got those log cabins moved, turned around, and beautiful. But we got to keep them up every year. You got to look at them. What is it needs to be done? Look them over. Now, the church, yes, a lot of it is my money, I admit. And there is somebody else that wants to remain anonymous. I don't take full credit. But I see what needs to be done and I work at it. That church has had to do fundraisers, one for 25,000 that had to be raised in 6 months. And I was just one of 3 women that managed to do that to get it moved down here, or it would have been torn down. Second, sometimes I wish more things could be done to it, that I like to have papers around it. Not all the way around, I just on the west and the north side, just to make it just a little more unique. New doors and some flowers maybe on the south and the east side. Hydrangeas. Can't you see it? Can't you see it? Can't you see our vision? Can't you see our love? I don't want you to turn us down. I waited 5 years for a furnace and air conditioner. I bothered the mayor here when he was having his Valentine's lunch with his wife at the Emporium. At first, I didn't know whether to approach him or not. Valentine's Day. I know you're thinking I'm silly, but you recognize the fact, Mr. Hawkins, Mayor Hawkins, you recognized it. After 5 years waiting, when you had a gift of money, and you have a gift of money now, you have a gift of money from this fella here. Don't mess around. He means business. He'll take his money elsewhere. He gets too disappointed. We don't want to do that, do we? I said just briefly, and I don't mean to take over on anything, but that Mulberry Sarah Church has come a long ways. It hasn't been with me, about me. Do you know what does it? I get stressed sometimes and I pray. And God helps me with it. How do you think I done that by myself? I didn't. There's somebody behind me. And there's somebody going to be behind that bar as long as I'm staying down there. And I want you to get busy and turn this around and help Gary down here that had worked all summer, spring and summer on this. He's got his eyes dotted and his T's crossed. Let's go for it, please. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry.
All right. Can you improve that? Yeah. Thanks, Carol.
These are all my notes for tonight here, so. No, they really are. Thank you for your service, all of you. This is what you signed up for us and this is what you get, so remember that on election day. My name is Rick Young. I'm chairman of the Hamilton County Supervisors. I want you to know that on October 25th, our next board session, I'm going to put on the agenda to pass $180,000. And Gary, there is one condition we have to put on it, and that is to for services provided to repair and restore the original Hamilton County Courthouse. Thanks to the state audit of Iowa, we have to make that stipulation, so we just can't give that money in there. So. Correct. So, yeah, we've been through a few of those things. So that money will go into the Enhanced Hamilton County Foundation. It's going to come from local option sales tax, which there's no actual numbers, but about half of it comes from county residents. And if you see the people at Quick Star and down in Ellsworth at the stations down there, easily half of the money comes from out of state. So I think that's a good investment here for the people of Hamilton County. So on the Heritage Center, I've been through some property exchanges over the past couple of months here, so I feel you're paid. And we're prepared to work with the committee and provide some assets of the county, especially that property back there behind the DHS building. So again, we have to act on behalf of all county people. But that's why we ask as part of it is that at least, I think the word is no more than 3 from the rural or no more than 3 from Webster City be on that board, because we're gonna be dealing with some of their assets and so on. And I think that's a simple ask for the whole thing. Appreciate your concerns. We hope we can move forward and get this project accomplished. When it's all done, it's gonna be a great project. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll hold on again.
Yeah, yeah.
Move on. Okay. Thanks, everybody. So we've got next part of the meeting, item 6 is meeting closed session, discuss purchase of particular real estate, only where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the governmental body would have to pay for that property as provided by chapter 21.5J. Data bylaw.
Move to approve.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, it'll be.
There probably won't be an item to vote on. No, it'll be.